But what's still confusing me, though, is that if Artemis 1 was about design the spacecraft that would be used by humans to make sure that everything is essentially kosher for it to come back safely, all that kind of stuff, Artemis 2 is now going to bring humans into that same situation. And then hopefully then we could then go back to the moon, land on it, and go from there. But we did that, right? So then, like, what would we still need to, I don't know, this may sound stupid, but what would we still need to learn then? Like, if we've already been to the moon and we know what it takes and the impacts it has on humans or whatever, or maybe we just didn't know enough and it was such a rushed mission, I don't know. But
yeah, I mean...
why that phased approach, I guess?
There's so much more science to do at the moon. One of the major differences between the Apollo program and the Artemis program is the location of the moon, where you're going to be landing humans eventually. Apollo landed them all on a variety of places. There was a bunch of missions that landed, but they were sort of on the Earth-facing side, mostly in the Maria, in those dark areas. But the Artemis missions are targeting the South Pole, because the South Pole has a couple of craters there that never, the bottoms of the craters right on the South Pole never see the light of day ever. They're permanently, we call them permanently shadowed regions. And in those regions, we find there's water ice, large amounts of ice, water, like H2O frozen. And that, if you want to, then what you're doing is you can picture yourself, what can I use this water for? Well, obviously we can use it for drinking, but if you break apart the H and the O, you can get different fuels. You can get breathing air, and now you're learning how to live off the land, right? Because if you want a sustained human presence throughout the solar system, learning how to live off the land is really important. What do we have there, and how do we use it? So, going to the moon, going to the South Polar region with the permanently shadowed region, we're going to learn how to harvest water and use that water to maintain a human presence. And that's only a 3-day trip. And then you can use what you learned there to go and do the same thing on Mars. And that's a 6-month trip or an 8-month trip. So you don't want to just jump to an 8-month trip, right? You want to learn how to live on the moon safely, out of reach of humans, but sort of closer, 3 days drive is okay. And then when you go to Mars, which is the next big step after that, you're ready for it.
So the moon is the next step. Like if you think about the International Space Station, low Earth orbit, we get to the moon, then the ultimate goal there is Mars and obviously beyond.
And then what's the question? There's my question is, what's beyond on
what's
Mars?
Next?
I think that the next step for human space exploration would be going to an icy moon, which would be Enceladus or Europa. So Europa around Jupiter, Enceladus around Saturn. I don't know where else. Yeah, those would be my two biggest ones. There's a few. Ganymede would be an interesting one. Callisto's an interesting one. Titan is an interesting moon.
Yeah.
So all of those places would be, but that's like 150 years in the future.